Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a post-Max Photography Masterclass. That's right, folks. It's Friday. That means it's typically Masterclass Friday, although we haven't done them in a couple weeks because we were doing all things Max and getting ready for not only the world's, I think, largest creativity conference, but certainly the largest creativity conference in Adobe's history, by taking it all online for 3 solid days and countries all around the world, 24 hours a day, and making it completely free. So that let us have literally hundreds of thousands of people watching Max for the first time. So with that said, my name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist. It's great to be back in my regular studio chair, different studios for different days. But this is my photography masterclass. For those of you who are new, I do this typically every Friday. And this is my time that I get to talk to photographers in general about photography related things. If you're new, we normally do anything from post-processing to how to get better in Lightroom and Photoshop to actually doing live shoots in the studio. I've done a few of those where we talk about lighting and gear and things like that. So we typically like to do everything. All right, so with that said, I want to talk about what we're going to do today, which is what's new in photography, meaning specifically for photography in Lightroom, Lightroom Classic, and Photoshop, and also covering many of the things that I didn't get a chance to show in the keynote or didn't get a chance to show in the photography hour. So I did 2 photography hours, both the first day and the second day, plus the keynote the first day. And my keynote was like literally 5 minutes. So I got to show 5 minutes worth of things. But today I get to do an hour-long or 52-minute long deep dive. So with that said, if you're watching this on another platform, like I see Kevin, Deb, and Christine over on Facebook, and I see some folks on Twitter, I see a bunch of folks over on my YouTube channel. If you're watching this somewhere else, that's fine. You can hang out there, and maybe I'll see your comment, maybe I won't. But if you head over to b.net/Adobe Live, I will see your comment because that's the main chat that I'm going to be paying attention to for the masterclass. You don't have to go there, but if you want us to see what your questions, if you want me to see what you're saying, that's probably the best place to ask. All right, so today, again, is all about masterclasses. So I'm kicking things off with photography. I can't remember the schedule. I think Paul Tranny's up after me doing, we have the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge, then Paul Tranny, then Jason Levine, then then Howard Pinsky doing XD, then Kyle Webster doing drawing and art. So masterclasses free all day, every Friday. And so with that said, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. All right, so today's topic, what's new in photography? I have my laundry list of notes for all the things that I wanted to make sure I covered. So I'm just going to dive in no particular order. We're going to start in Photoshop and cover those things. All right, so let me switch over to my desktop. I've got Photoshop open. Yay, Photoshop. This is the new 2021 version. I do get people every now and then asking me, what version of Photoshop are you using? I'm always using the latest version. I'm never using a version that's not the latest version. So if you don't have this latest version, just head over to your Creative Cloud desktop app and do an update. And it will update. It will show you all the updates, and it will give you the option of keeping your old version or replacing your old version, and that is totally up to you. Last time I kept my old version because I wanted to show the difference in select subject between the 2019 and 2020 versions. This time I didn't feel the need to keep the old Photoshop, but I could always go back and install it if I ever needed it. So with that said, what's new? All right, let's dive into what's new. So I've got an image open here, and by the way, this is also a cross between what I showed at Max, what I already recorded and showed on my YouTube channel, and what I didn't get a chance to show in any one of those. So you'll see some crossover between. All right, this particular example is when you go up to the upper right-hand corner, there's a search icon. And when you grab the search icon, it brings up not just the old search that Photoshop did 2 weeks ago. it's bringing up the new Discover panel. And the new Discover panel is always going to be updated, showing you the latest and greatest things about Photoshop, including the ability to search for whatever it is you're looking for, whatever problem you're having, or whatever you want to learn about Photoshop. You can always do that. That's what this was originally designed for, searching Photoshop, searching your Lightroom photos, so forth and so on. But if you scroll down now, you'll see that it does a lot more. Hands-on tutorials, great. I'm going to come back to quick actions. What's new? User guide, support community. So you got problems, you can go there. Plugins, stock, fonts, and even Adobe Live. So if you wanted to watch other live streams, you can get to them from right there. Now, what's cool about this particular one is this is designed to let you go find out how to do something. So if I wanted to remove the background from this photo, I could type in remove background, and it would start proposing either text documents for me to read or videos for me to watch, step-by-step tutorials, so forth and so on. But a lot of times, we don't have time for that. we just want it done. We don't have time to learn how to do it. I'll learn it later. Just do it for me. That's why I'm happy to see some of these quick actions. So if I go to quick actions, it's got some of the most common things that people would want to do in context of the photo. So in this case, it's seeing a photo there and it's saying, remove background, blur background, make the background black and white, enhance the image. Typically, in the past, when you've seen something like this, it was based on the tutorial photo. This is based on the photo I have open. So if I say remove background, it's going to tell me about what remove background does, and I could go learn all about that. But more importantly, if I just click apply, it'll do it to my photo. So this is what I mean by a quick action for just getting into getting things done on your existing photo. Now, if it wasn't good enough, because this guy's got hair, it even prompts me to, hey, you want to know more about select and mask and get into that and learn more about that capability? And you can. Now, select and mask, you can even see it in the upper left corner. It's showing me where it is in case I didn't know, because it's always trying to teach me. But if I were to now go into that, it would take me into the select and mask mode where, let me close this a little bit. There we go. Did it take me into select? Yeah, it took me into select and mask, where I can continue working on this photo and enhance it even more if I needed to for the for working with the hair in this particular photo. Now, I'm going to go to my refine edge brush because there is something new here that I'll be honest, I didn't really know on day one either. Like, I didn't know that this was here. I didn't know they added this. And you'll notice that there's now a button, a new button at the top, refine hair. That wasn't there 2 weeks ago. That wasn't there. It might have been a beta, but it wasn't there in the release version. So you have different modes now for select and mask. So if I click refine hair, it will take me into the refine hair Adobe Sensei powered refine hair and do an instant better job on the refine hair. And if I do use the refine brush, it's designed for hair if I'm in that mode. So it's even taking it up a notch for what we did in June with the portrait select subject. It's even getting better at hair from June to now. So hair, that's the thing that people always said they wanted it to do a better job of. It's now doing a better job, like you asked. Just click a button and you get a better refined edge for hair. Now I can go in and tell it to output this to a new layer with a mask. I get my new layer with a mask, and if I were to now I'm just going to grab a random background and put behind this guy. If I were to grab a random background and put behind it, it cut it out perfectly. Look at that. That's just amazing to be able to do that now in one click. And I could have still refined, use the refine edge brush. I could have still brushed it if it didn't do it perfectly, but it did it perfectly. Here, let's zoom in. Let's take a look. And if it wasn't perfect, I still have a mask to work on. That is unheard of with a click in Photoshop, that now it's doing that. All that blue sky from his background is gone, and it made literally a perfect mask. If we were to go ahead and turn that on or off, we would see it. But it is just pretty freaking cool. All right, so that is the new Discover panel, and I kind of snuck in the new Refine Edge, Refine Hair click button that I wasn't even aware of until recently. All right, but you get the benefit of me finding out about it. All right, so with that said, let's head over to the big one that people are like most excited about, and I showed this in the keynote, the sky replacement, and I want to get into some details about this as well. So sky replacement, and here I'm going to go to one. This is the one I did in the keynote, but I think I've got one here. Let's go to a couple of these, a couple of photos I did not use in the keynote. Now, this is a photo. I purposely added this photo to my library because this photo I took back in 2008, 2009, I can't remember. And this is Horseshoe Bend up in the Utah area, Page, Arizona area. And this is the sky I got that day. And I was never happy with this sky. And I remember spending hours trying to make the sky look better. And then I always tell the story. And then I was always in tears when I got back to my hotel room that I could not get my sky to look good as I had seen in other images. Then I kind of Googled Horseshoe Bend, and I start looking at other people's photos of Horseshoe Bend. And here's something I realized is that depending on the time of day you capture this, usually people do this at sunset or sunrise. If you do a sunset capture of this, you're good luck trying to get a good sky. It's just not always a good sky on this particular scene. I got one the following couple years. I did get a good sky, but this one I did not. So what I ended up doing was this. I was like, I just can't get it right. Let's do that. There we go. And I cheated. I just said, that's Horseshoe Bend. And I was happy with it from that point on. This actually brought a smile to my face because I went and looked at other people's photos and I just realized that not everyone shows the sky, because if the sky was bad, you just don't show it. But now I don't have to do that anymore because this is back to that original photo. I've retouched the bottom portion, but I left the sky just the way it was, just the way it was captured. And now if I were to go into Edit, Sky Replacement, and I were to let it pick a sky, this is one of the built-in skies. That one's not that great, but I can go in and I can go find a sky that I do like. Now the skies are in different categories. So there's blue skies, there's spectacular skies, and there's sunsets. And you can, of course, add your own. So all those skies you've just been walking around pointing up at the sky and taking when you see beautiful skies, now you got some use for them because you can add them in. So I can go into, let's say, spectacular, for example. Let's grab a different sky, and now I'm starting to get what I've always wanted, what I always dreamed this image could be. I can just click on any one of these, and it figured out what the sky was and started doing the replacement. Now, there's still a little haze issue down here at the foreground. I'd probably go ahead and dehaze that with an adjustment brush. But as far as just getting a better looking sky and having it tone the foreground accordingly, is just doing what I've always wished I could have done with this image. So I could go pick the sky that I want, finish adjusting the foreground, and just kind of get the look that I'd always hoped I would have on this image of Horseshoe Bend. I kind of like one of the earlier ones. I kind of like that one. All right, so if I decide that this is the sky I kind of want to start with, then I can go ahead and click OK. And the nice part about all this is that it did not make any permanent change to my sky. It basically made a layer group. Here, let me get out of the crop tool. It made a layer group of all the things that it did, all the masking that it did, all the skies that the sky that it added in. If I were to show you the mask, that's the mask that it created. Here's the foreground lighting mask because it kind of adjusted the lighting for the foreground as well. And then I can just go in and just start making any adjustments I want from there now that I've got a better sky. So I might go in, for example, to the background. I might go into my camera raw filter, like I said, and I might go in and start just dehazing that background a little bit with my adjustment brush. Why is my camera raw filter all grayed out? I don't know why my camera raw filter's all. Oh wait, I probably have a dialog box open somewhere. No. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I go in and I would grab my adjustment brush, make my brush smaller, And let's go in and not choose exposure, but let's go in and choose a little dehaze. There we go. And I would just start dehazing, yeah, just bringing back in some of that detail at the top up here and getting that looking the way I want it. And then once I click OK, I'm not saying I'm done, but yeah, starting to bring that back in and kind of making that match a little bit. I still tone down this blue area a little bit more on the left-hand side, but basically I'm getting the kind of sky that I've always wanted for this shot. Now, if we hop back over here to the shot that I used as an example for the keynote, here's one of the things that people might not have noticed right away. And here, let me show you what I did. So I went in and I went and grabbed, I don't even have the sky that I used for the keynote, but let's go to blue skies. And I think I used just a blue cloudy sky. Let's pick one of these. All right, cool. That was similar to this. And I'm just basically replacing a daytime sky with a daytime sky. So if I were to move this around, you can see that it is a layer. You can even see the edge of the layer. There it is. And the beauty of this is, and this is the true magic of the sky replacement, is that it not only had to figure out what the sky was, but it also had to adjust for the foreground, the bridge, the suspension ropes, the trees, the branches, all that little stuff down here at the bottom. It had to figure out how to mask so that you could see the new sky behind it. It did that in a click. That had taken me several minutes, if not hours, to do that right. And I'm getting that in a click now, and it's just blowing my mind. But here's the one thing it does not do, at least it didn't do on this image. It's good at selecting the edges of your content, of your subject, and replacing the sky around it, but the windows themselves, it didn't touch because it doesn't know what those are. It just basically thinks that's part of the foreground. Now, if I pick a different time of day, like if we go down to those sunsets, and I pick a sunset, it does adjust the color of the foreground. It does try and adjust the bridge and the color of the buildings, but the sky reflecting in the windows is still the original sky. Now, when I first recorded my keynote demo, this tool wasn't even in the build yet. There is now a brush tool. Here, let me zoom in so you can see it. This brush tool is new as of the release or one of the later betas. So you can now go in and say, oh, it missed parts of the sky. I can go in and start brushing that sky back in to those windows. And I'm just doing it on this one window here. I'm not going to do everything, but you get the idea. Because all it is just a mask. So you're telling it non-destructively to brush that sky in, that new sky, into these windows. And you have different modes for your brush. So it's using normal, which means it's just, I think the original default mode is overlay, but you can switch to whatever brush mode you want to brush in the sky that's behind the buildings, so it's actually getting the right sky. So if it missed parts, if it did not do exactly what you wanted, and even remember that on the horseshoe bend, that little blue ridge, well, I don't have to keep that ridge. I could have brushed it away and just given it more sky. So it's really up to you for what you want to really go in and adjust. So there's like this little yellow streak. I don't want that there. And again, I'm doing this at 50% opacity. So if I go back over it again, it will completely take it out. So just be mindful of your brush settings when you're brushing, because it starts at 50% overlay, which may not look like it's doing anything. And then if it's like a stubborn spot you need to get out, just remember you're brushing at 50%. If you go over it again, now you'll be at 100%. All right, so take your time, go in, zoom in, brush, get it just the way you want. And when you click OK, and it gives you that, you'll see that the mask, those are all the brush strokes you made on those windows. So you can go in and tweak it all you want because it is just a layer and a layer mask at that point. So if it didn't replace every little detail in the sky the way you wanted it to, no problem. You've got a brush to do it while you're in sky replacement, or you've got the mask and the layer to do it after the fact. Do whatever you want. All right, I'm seeing all the responses there. Cool, very nice. Sam saying very nice. Steve saying beautiful. Steve's saying cool again and saying that's great. Yeah, and again, it just, I only had like 2 people call that out. They were like, what about the reflections in the windows? Most people didn't even notice because they were blown away by what it was doing to the bridge. And I was blown away by what it did to the bridge too. So sky replacement, just go in and again, have some fun with it. And best of all, like I said, import your own skies. You don't have to use those skies. And by the way, I recommend you import your own skies because here's why. After a while, we'll all know what those skies are and what they look like, the ones that come with Photoshop, and we'll know you use them. Because, well, oh, I recognize those 8 clouds. Those are the ones that are built in. So go shoot as many skies as you want. When you go to sky replacement, you can click add. You can even make your own folder. You can put them in and organize them as my skies or my daytime, my nighttime, whatever skies you want, or Milky Ways or whatever you want, and use those as replacements. Okay, next up. Let's get into the neural galleries. Okay, so I did not show this in the keynote. We ran a video of the neural galleries, and I want to go ahead and point out a couple of things that, to first of all, talk about what the neural galleries are, where we're headed with those, and some performance ways you can get around some of the things that aren't maybe as fast as I would like them to be. So if you go to your filter menu, you've got this thing called neural filters. And if I go to neural filters, then it will show me categories. So there's one right off the bat, skin smoothing and style transfer. These are the ones so far that we think are done. They're like ready to go. Those are ones you can start using. We're happy with the performance. We're happy with the way they work. Then you've got this little test tube here, this little test beaker. This little test beaker is the beta filters. That means that these aren't necessarily finished yet. These will just keep getting better. So if I go in, there's a bunch of those, and most of those say beta. So if I go into Smart Portrait, you'll notice that everything's turned off. But the minute I turn something on, let's say that I turn on light direction, it'll start spinning and processing in the upper right-hand corner. And it, depending on your computer, your GPU, and your internet connection, that could be quick or that could take a minute. Because what it's having to do is it's making a proxy, it's uploading that proxy to Creative Cloud, and then applying the filter to the proxy. So that way, once it brings it back down, you can work faster. You can start doing other things, and it will be faster at those things because it doesn't have to keep rendering that proxy every time. So that's why it sends the proxy up once, brings it back down, then you can rock all you want. Now, to avoid having to do that over and over again on different photos, what I did was I'm canceling out. What I did was I opened up this photo, I converted it for smart filters using the convert for smart filters option. And then I applied a neural filter gallery as a smart filter so that it's already rendered. It's already brought down that proxy. And I can just double click on neural filters to get back to it. And I don't have to worry about it rendering anymore because it's already done it once. Now, it might spin for a second just to update and make sure it's got the latest rendering of that, but it's going to be much quicker than having to send that proxy up to the cloud again and bringing it back down. All right, so with that said, what do I want to do here? So for example, I think the example I showed in my YouTube video was I show the head direction, which is the most common one people like to they freak out with. So if I turn my head to the left, we'll give it a second to do that, and it just did it. So here, I turn my head to the, and this is a still photo, a single layer, and it's actually making those changes. Now, it's not doing the collar perfectly, but again, it's a layer. I can go ahead and mask that back in and get the collar just right. I can just keep turning my head, and it's just doing this just weird, like crazy, I can't believe it's doing that thing to turn someone's head. Then there's gaze, which means I can turn my eyes to look left or right as well. So if I turn my eyes to the left, it's actually going to turn my eyes to the left, even with my glasses on. And the artificial intelligence that we refer to as Adobe Sensei. So yes, this is AI, and we call it Adobe Sensei. Where are the neural filters located? Under filter menu, I already showed that. I'm just making sure I catch up with the chat. This one feature, I played with it during the keynote. Let's get moving, blah, 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 blah. Okay, how do you remove those pesky halos? Again, it's a mask, so you can select the subject once you're done and then invert the selection and just remove the mask. Remove the halos. There's lots of ways to get rid of the halo if it's got a halo on it. All right, so next, for example, I'm going to turn those off now. and it'll just go back to the me looking forward. And there I'm going to go ahead and just play with the facial age, which I did earlier. So facial age, it didn't do as much to the face as I expected. Like I expect to start seeing wrinkles and things like that. I'm seeing it slight amount, but it's doing more to my hair. And let's say that, as I get older, maybe I'm going to cut my hair shorter, so I might do less hair thickness. And yeah, there we go. That's about right. And I'm just happy that Adobe Sensei thinks that I'm going to get to keep all my hair when I get older. That's like, I'm pretty happy about that. All right, but that's the older me, and of course I can turn off the hair thickness and I can try a younger me. And when I go to a younger me, hey, I look the same. This is awesome. I'm 103 years old, but I always look the same. This is great. I am from the future, so I just always look the same. All right, anyway, that is facial age. That's kind of fun to play with. And you can have the happiness slider. The happiness slider, last time I tried it, did weird things. Let's see. Let's see if it makes me happier. Yeah, there we go. Hey. So have some fun with these. I'm not sure as photographers if you're going to get a ton of use out of the smart portrait just yet, but hey, someone's smiling a little too much or not enough, you can tweak it and just see what that gives you. But certainly worth a shot if you had an issue with a photo that you kind of wanted to just make a little bit of an adjustment to. Like I said, with any slider, don't go too far, because that's just that's just a recipe for disaster if you go too far on any slider, and that's always been the case. All right, I'm going to cancel out of this. I'm going to show you a more useful version of this. I've got this photo. This is an Adobe stock photo, and I've got this photo, which is an Adobe stock photo. This photo, as you can see, highly creative, highly designed. They match the background with the makeup. This is basically a very professional looking shot. But what if you wanted to see what that kind of makeup would look like on her? Not the borders, not the background. You'd have to Photoshop those in, but just the makeup alone. So I can go to this photo, go into the neural filters under the filter menu, and then go to something called, not Smart Portrait, but Makeup, where is it? Makeup Transfer. So it's right under Smart Portrait. So if I go ahead and turn on Makeup Transfer, then it'll ask me, what's the image you want, because it knows you want to use this image to put the makeup on, but what's the image you want to get the makeup from? So let's go in and I can tell it, I can go find an image, select an image from my hard drive, or I can use one of the images I have open, which I want to use. Is it background? Oh, hang on, I need to make sure it's background 2. Yeah, background, they're all named the same. I didn't know which one's which. And let's confirm that. Yep, background 2 is the image I want. And we give it a second, and it transferred the makeup over. Now, it did it. It figured out what the lips were. It put the blue lipstick on. It figured out what the gold eyeshadow was. It put the gold eyeshadow on, and it actually did it. It's not bad at all. To have that happen in one click, and you still get to go in and do what you want to do beyond that. So makeup transfer, I could see some uses for that. That's pretty useful to, especially from a creative standpoint, to say, well, I have this shot that I took and I kind of want to experiment and enhance it even further with a makeup transfer. Boom, away you go. All right, so now if I were to click OK, I think I said I'll put that as a new layer. Once it brings it in, so that makeup is all on a layer all by itself, and there it is. That's what it figured out it needed to do, and those are the adjustments it made. And of course, if I want to ever turn it off, just turn off the makeup. So you can see the before and after and kind of see what it had to do and what it figured out to do in one click. All right, now you don't need to buy a bunch of expensive face makeup cosmetics for your model. More importantly, not so much that you don't need to buy expensive makeup. Nothing replaces a professional makeup artist, in my opinion. But what you get to do is you get to experiment with looks. And then once you dial in the look for your specific subject, then you can say, makeup artist, here's what I want it to look like. Go apply this makeup. Instead of wasting time and wasting makeup with the wrong looks. So that's what I can kind of see this feature being used for is I have 5 different looks. I would like her to look like one of these. I don't know which one's going to work best. I apply each one, kind of get a feel for them, and then say, okay, boom, that's the one I like. Makeup artist, go to town. All right, so that is the neural filters from a makeup transfer standpoint. Now let's pop into this one. This is one of my favorite ones. And this is the, see people asking questions to themselves, blah, blah, blah. Can it wash off if your makeup is already wearing? Yeah, if reverb mic, if the makeup, if can't it wash off? Can it wash off? I've applied it to images that already had makeup and it did an okay job because again, it's replacing that part of the image with the new makeup. So it doesn't need to wash it off necessarily as you would need to do in real life. All right, next up, black and white photo. Again, I downloaded this from Adobe Stock as is, black and white. I didn't do anything to it, didn't touch it at all. This is the way the photo came in. Went up to my filter menu, neural filter, come down to the beta area and click colorize. Again, now think about this before I turn it on. You've got grass, you've got sheep, all different alternating shades of sheep. You've got trees, you've got mountains, you've got sky, sun, and a sheep herder. And it's having to figure out what color all those things should be from a black and white photo. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and click one time, turn on colorize, and there it is. And when I saw this result and it happened so fast, I was like, whoa, wait, did I see what I just saw with my own eyes? From a black and white photo, it figuring out what all these things are in an instant and turning it on into color. And if I click OK, because we did output that as a new layer, it gave me my new layer. Now, I, of course, spent some time studying this image after I did it, and I realized, oh, wait, that one sheep up there is kind of, these sheeps at the very tippy top here are kind of green. Maybe they shouldn't, there's kind of bringing some of that grass onto them because maybe it didn't know that that was a sheep. It thought it was part of the grass. But again, it's a layer. So if I just wanted to put a layer mask on and mask out that green, like so, go to my brush and paint in black, I can just take the green off of that one sheep that I don't like and adjust it. So the fact that it did that as a layer and it just fell out of my chair. Yeah, Rudolph, the fact that it did that as a layer and it just didn't, like it figured out what everything was. And I was like, okay, that was, you know, maybe that was luck. Let me try it on this one. Like, let me try a different one. And you're going to get different results with different photos. So let's go to filter gallery. Let's go to, oh, wrong gallery. Yeah, neural filters, not filter gallery. Neural filters, there we go. And let's go into the beta area once again and click, and this is beta, still not done yet. So if I click colorize on this, and boom, just again, figuring out what all of that should look like. Now, all of this kind of stayed kind of brownish, so, you know, maybe I wanted that burn to be red, so I'd have to go in and just colorize the burn. But it got everything else right. And again, that's from this kind of sepia tone photo that it did all of that. All right, so even if it didn't do it 100%, if it got me 90% of the way there, 80% of the way there, and I just had to fix a couple things, it was well worth the click to get me that. All right, next up, I'm gonna cancel out of that one. All right, and let's go here. We did that one already. And I think I'm done with my Photoshop. Let's move on. All right, let's pop over to Lightroom. All right, so a couple of new things. This is not Lightroom Classic. This is Lightroom, sometimes we refer to it as cloud version. So a couple of new things here. First and foremost, just some organizational type things. So you've got the ability to turn on and off your side panel now with this click of the button in the upper left corner. That's turning that side panel on and off. So these are a couple of UI type things. You've got albums, which you've always had, and now you can get right to your shared albums, albums that were shared with you or albums that you've shared out to other people, and you can quickly see those. Next up, you've got, let me go into a specific area or a specific photo. Let me go down to one of these. If we go into the edit area, Brand new, it's trying to show me something. Yep, I got it, that panel turns on and off. It's trying to show me now the versions which we brought out, I believe in the June update. I lose track, but the June update had versions. Now you have auto versions. So what's the difference? Versions are things that you make yourself. So you basically say you want to do something to a photo, make it black and white, and you create a version of that black and white. We can call it BW, black and white. All right, so now that's the version I can get to. I can always get back to the original, and if I go to the original and I make another color change, or just another change in general, let's make it super bright, make it unrealistically bright. I can create a version of that, and we can call it super bright. So that part is not new. What's new is auto versions. So notice that I created these versions, but auto version still has just the original. Well, as I close out of this photo, as I make changes, so as if I were to go back to the grid and then go, potentially if I go back into that photo now and I go back to my versions, yeah, auto didn't keep it. But once I quit out of Lightroom, it kind of remembers everything you did and it proposes these auto versions. So it's basically just going to keep a history of the changes you made. I haven't quit out yet, so it didn't do it. But once you quit out of Lightroom, it will make versions automatically of all the things you did, so you can always get back to previous versions automatically. So you can still make your own versions. You can still get to any particular time or edit you want. But auto versions, even if you don't make versions, will make versions for you. And they don't take up any extra space, so there's no concern for that. All right, next up. Let's go back to the grid here, and we're going to go down to this album. There we go. And we'll go and edit this photo. And this is one of the big ones. Now, I'm going to show it here in Lightroom. It's also in mobile. It's also in Lightroom Classic as well. And that is the ability to go into your color area. And in your color area, you've got a brand new section called color grading. Now, color grading replaces split toning. So you've had split toning for years. Now you've got, so versions are like snapshots and history and classic. You got it, Roger. Exactly the same. Well, yes and no. But yeah, you got it. For the most part, yes. All right, so color grading replaces split toning. And what's the difference? And what is color grading? First of all, let's talk about what color grading is in a nutshell. You've seen color grading for the last decade or so whenever you watch a movie. You think of, or TV show. You think of Game of Thrones, for example. Whoever watched Game of Thrones, you know that there was all these outdoor scenes. There were these scenes in the winter. Winter's coming. These scenes by the mountain of ice. And they all looked very blue and cold. And like, even if they were shot in the middle of July, the color grading applied to those videos made it look like it was cold just by applying a bunch of yellow to a scene to make it look super hot. So or yellow and orange, lots of ways to make a scene look a certain way just to give that impression of it's a different temperature or a different time of day. A different look, especially the scenes that were shot on different days, different times, is called color grading. Now we're bringing that into Lightroom for photographers as well. So for example, if I wanted to create my own, this is Iceland, if I wanted to create my own Game of Thrones for my Iceland shot here, then I could go in and I could say, oh, let's make that super blue and super cold. And I'm doing that there. And I did that to the, oh, hang on, didn't do that to the right spot. Let's do that to the highlights. There we go. And I want to make those shadow areas of the mountains a little greener. I'm just dragging towards the green there, and I'm adjusting that as well. And of course, you've got your midtones, which split toning really didn't affect as much. And now I've got my midtones I can play with and make those any color as I want as well. So just an easy way of color grading a photo. Can I explain about horror color grading? Like what is horror? I don't know what that is. So what's horror color grading? So versions are not virtual copy equivalents, correct, because virtual copies create multiple actual thumbnails that you can go back and forth between and make other edits to. All right. So that's color grading in a nutshell. I invite you to experiment with it. You've also got a blending slider. You've also got an balance slider. So you can change the amount of the balance between those different wheels. If you ever decide you don't like what you did, just like any other setting in Lightroom, double click to reset any of those wheels to get it back to the way it was. Those midtones and white balance are the same. No, midtones and white balance are not the same. White balance is adjusting the overall color of the image based on a set white balance. It's not just for the midtones, whereas midtones are just the midtones. All right. Next up, when you go to export, and so a couple things here. Back in the, I think, June or before update, we gave you the ability to do custom exports out of Lightroom. Now there's also, this is kind of snuck in here, previous settings just like in Lightroom Classic. So you do an export out of custom, you get it, set up just the way you want. Now you want to export the next photo. And you don't want to have to go put in all those things over again. So now you can go ahead and just say previous settings. So let's go to custom export. And custom export now gives you, let me turn this off, gives you the ability to specify exactly all the things you want, including more options for the color space, for the naming, for sharpening, for all those things just like we do in Lightroom Classic. But what's new here is we have the ability to include watermarks, but if we go to watermarks, you had before this update, in the June update, you had the ability to do text-based watermarks. So this Terry White copyright that you probably can't see. Let's go there. All right, it's Terry White copyright here in the bottom right-hand corner. All right, or I can put it in the upper left corner or in the middle or anywhere else for that matter. But anyway, you had the ability to put in a text-based watermark. Now, in this version, as it's pointing out to me, you now have a graphic-based watermark that, yes, okay, I got it, that you can choose from. So now I can actually import my own, I suggest ping files because they maintain transparency. I can import my own ping file like I have of my logo here, and I can put my logo right next to my head. Ooh, there it is, my logo. And now that's there, so when you are done working with your watermark, now your watermark is either on or off, so you can turn it on, turn it off. And the other thing I like about watermarks in general, if I ever use a watermark, is that you can adjust the size relative to the whole photo, so relative to the resolution you're exporting. You can adjust the opacity, because I usually drop it down to about 70% opaque. You can do horizontal offset, so it's not right next to the edge or the bottom, vertical offset, and you can position it wherever you want. So creating watermarks upon export is now there for both text and graphics. You can make your own presets, use them. Okay, you can, yes, you can make your own presets, and you can use them next fall and match these, match the years. You can do that as well. All right, just making sure, kind of got that. I'm going to switch over to Lightroom on the iPad or mobile. Let me switch over to Lightroom on mobile. And with Lightroom on mobile, one of the things I thought was pretty cool, so this is a mobile feature and a Lightroom web feature. It's not in Lightroom on the desktop yet. I'm looking at my landscapes portfolio album. And let's say someone said, hey, we want you to submit one of your best landscape photos. Well, I would pick one of my favorites, but let's say I'm biased. Maybe I'll pick a shot that isn't necessarily the best, but I like it best. What I can get is a second opinion. I can have Lightroom decide what are best photos. So if I go to an album, and it has to have at least 10 or more photos in it, so 10 or more, and I go up to the upper right-hand corner to the menu, there's now an option, choose best photos. And it should say show best photos, because that sounds like it's making me choose them. But if I say choose best photos, Lightroom will analyze the photos in that album, 10 or more, and it will then choose what it thinks are the best from that. Dun, 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 dun. All right, there we are. So quality threshold. So it thinks those 5 at the top are the best, and it's giving me some others like candidates. But no, no, no. I don't want to pick from 5. I want you to narrow it down as much as you can. So I'm going to go ahead and drag the slider all the way to the right. So those are the top 3 that it thinks are the best in that album. And if I were going to pick one of those 3, I'd pick the middle one. So that's just my opinion. So anyway, it's giving me the choices of those, what it thinks are the best based on an album of my top 3, and you can do whatever you want with those choices. You can agree, you can disagree, you can you can not go with it, or you can go with it. It's totally up to you. All right, so is that only in the iPad version? That is in the iOS version, so you should see that on iOS, phone, or iPad. I'm not sure about Android because I don't have an Android device. So I can't answer that if it's there or not, but if you're not seeing it, then it's probably not there yet on Android. Android sometimes is a set of features behind because it's just sometimes a set of features behind. Hold on here. All right, I'm trying to load this on my phone. Let me get this up on my phone real quick. It should be here. It should be on the phone as well. It shouldn't just be iPad. So I'm going to jump to an album. All right, and go to my, yep, so Choose Best Photos is on phone as well. So it's right there. I can go to Choose Best Photos, and it's analyzing that album, showing me that it can do it on phone as well. So it is an iOS. It's an iOS definitely. If it's not an Android yet, expect an update hopefully soon. All right. I didn't hate on Android. I just said I don't have a device, so I can't confirm that or deny it. But if you're not seeing it, then I can say usually it's sometimes behind. All right. Next up, let's head over to, I only got a few minutes left, so let's head over to Lightroom Classic. And here we are in Lightroom Classic. And so Lightroom Classic, just as a reminder, did get the exact same thing in terms of develop module and in terms of working with color grading. So color grading is there as well for your Lightroom Classic users, which I am as well. Next up, so here's one of the cool things in Lightroom. Oh, and I didn't show this in Lightroom either. So wait, real quick, let me bounce back to Lightroom and show one thing real quick, and that is get out of export. And when you notice I've got the magnifying glass. Well, typically the magnifying glass lets you zoom in and zoom out. That was it. Now you can click and hold, and you get a scrubby slider. So you can scrub and slide just like you do in Photoshop. You can scrub and slide, if I hold it down long enough, in any particular area of the photo. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, if you hold down your Command key on Mac, Control key on Windows, you get a marquee. So you can actually zoom into a specific spot in your photo. So that is, and you click again and just jump back out. So that's what it is in Lightroom. Now let's jump over to Lightroom Classic. In Lightroom Classic, let's go here. I get the same thing. I get the marquee. So if I hold down the Command key on Mac, Control key on Windows, I get the marquee of selection and zoom into that exact spot. But if I hold down, I don't get the scrubby slider. And I was like, well, did they not put the scrubby slider in Classic? Because it was there in Lightroom. It's there, but it's just not in Loop View. It's in the Develop module. So when I go to the Develop module, again, holding down the magnifier doesn't do anything, but if you hold down your Shift key, then you get the scrubby slider. So Shift key in the Develop module, Command key in either module for a marquee, and clicking to zoom back out. You'll also notice that what's gone are the 1:1, 1:2, 1:3. They're now percentages. So, oh, sorry, you guys aren't seeing any of this. Why didn't you say so? I'm still on my desktop. All right, let's go back out. All right, here, let me zoom out so I can show that really quickly again. Back in Lightroom, hold down, and you get a scrubby slider to scrub. So that's holding down the magnifier. Clicking the magnifier zooms in and out like it always did. Holding down the Command key or PC Control key lets me marquee a selection, and clicking again zooms back out. So that's in Lightroom. In Lightroom Classic, when you're in Loop View, you have the Command key to do the marquee or Control key to do the marquee zooming just like you did before. And then you have the, we tried to tell you. All right, but what I noticed was holding down the zoom key didn't give me the scrubby slider in Lightroom Classic. And I was like, oh, did they not bring that over? And then I found out that it's actually because I'm in the library module. When you're in Lightroom, you're always, when you're zoomed in, there's no loop view. You're in an edit module to begin with. So if you head over to develop, and you still don't get a scrubby slider when you hold down, but if you hold down shift, you do. So if you hold down the shift key, you get the scrubby slider in Lightroom Classic in the develop module, just like you do in Lightroom. All right, now there is something for the loop view. And by the way, Command key marquee works in either mode. But if we go back to the loop view, where we have the Command key, we don't have the scrubby slider, but we do have one more thing. If you go down to the bottom right in loop view, you can customize what's on your toolbar. And if you go to your custom toolbar settings, you can choose a new option called zoom. It's right there. So if I turn on zoom, I now get a zoom slider that lets me zoom in anywhere, just like a scrubby slider, but it's not the scrubby slider. It's actually a tool that lets me zoom in to whatever percentage I want. So even in loop view, you can zoom in and then pan around and get to specific areas of your photo with the tool in the loop view. And in develop module, you don't need a tool because you can just hold down your shift key, scrubby slider, Command key or Control key to zoom into a specific area. All right, so I covered all the zooming in both programs. And of course on mobile, it's pinch and zoom anyway. Next up in Lightroom Classic, we did the color grading, we did the enhanced zoom. Something I really don't get a chance to show because in order to really show it, I need a side-by-side comparison, but Lightroom should be sped up. Lightroom Classic should be sped up. Brushing should be up to 2 times faster now, so using the adjustment brush. Scrubby sliders, rendering should be faster when you're using the sliders. Scrolling the grid, so just scrolling a grid of photos should be faster as well, and it's stated to be up to 2 times faster. So brushes should be up to 2 times faster. Optimized grid scrolling for folders and collections should be up to 2 times faster. We did the zooming, and if you are what is loop view? Loop view is when you're, so this is grid view, when you're looking at a grid of photos. When you select a certain photo and you hit the letter E, or you go to view and you choose loop, there's actually a loop view. It's just showing you that one photo zoomed in. That's what loop view is. All right, so when you're, we talked about zooming. Okay, if you are shooting tethered in Lightroom Classic, Canon users who tether now will be able, I don't have a Canon body, so I can't show it, but now we'll be able to tether with live view. So there will be a live button right at the bottom of the tether bar, and you can click live and see your live view while you're tethering. Coming to other cameras, but it's shipped for Canon first. So see, I'm not hating on Nikon. I'm a Nikon user. Just like I'm not hating on Android, some things come out for different platforms first. All right, and I'm right at the top of my time. I'm just making sure I don't cover it. There's one more little thing, like all the fonts have been, for Lightroom Classic, a little subtle thing, have been switched to a font we call Adobe Clean, just cleaning up the UI, making it a little easier to see the text, making the text a little cleaner, and should be more spacing and keywording, whatever that means. So just your keywording panel should be better as well. All right, thank you for the class. We appreciate your time. Don't forget to vote. Yep, I agree. Don't forget to vote, everyone. I already voted. My ballot's already been accepted. Just making sure I don't miss any questions while I got an extra second or two here. Yes, Lightroom Classic is faster. Worked a bunch in it today. Awesome. Thanks, Sean, for the confirmation. Roger, you're welcome. I'm glad you liked the presentation. And please re-show where best photos is in Lightroom Mobile. So I can do that real quick. Let's go back to the iPad. When you're in an album, so here, let me pick a different album. Let me go to my Nature and Animals album. When you're in an album, the menu in the little 3-bar menu, little 3-dot menu, that's where you'll find best photos. So where you go and choose your sort, so I would normally sort this custom. Where you do all of that is there's a choice for choose best photos. And it will analyze and then find your best photos based on what it thinks your best photos are. And I'm dying to see what it thinks for this album. And I'm going to run out of time. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now again, I always slide it over. So those are the top 3 photos in that album it thinks. And I agree with the tiger shark one. I agree with the animal in the middle. I forgot what it is, but I agree with those as well. All right, so that's it for my time today. Hope you had a great Max this year. Of course, it was all virtual, all free. But guys, stay tuned for more, and stay tuned for, I can't remember the schedule what's after me, but it usually is the Photoshop Creative Challenge. It might be something different today, but stay tuned for more masterclasses all day long. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.